Hi again, I'm Dr. Christine Williams, your mentor, and I welcome you back. Now you've sorted out what your plans are by writing a prologue, we can move on to the chronological start of your story in Chapter 1. You've already shown us the direction and tone of your story, the light and shade, perhaps a bit of humour, a little sadness, and given a couple of examples that reflect what you're aiming for, what you want your reader to know and feel about your life story. Now it's important to think about who you are writing for, a particular person or a few persons, so that there's a feeling of common humanity to your life story, so that it doesn't feel as if it's been written by a robot. Born, grew up, started a career, chose a partner, and here I am. For you to be able to get under your own skin, your own facade, and really tell us some worthwhile stories about the real you, it's a good idea to imagine you're writing this for someone you love, a close friend, your soulmate, or even just a couple of people you feel close to. It's best to choose someone you trust, or you can imagine will be reading your story sympathetically in years to come. Maybe someone who's known you down the years, or even a grandchild when grown, for instance. Don't be shy. Imagine how at ease you feel when you're talking with your friends, how happy they are to hear your take on life, maybe down the pub, at a cafe, at a friend's place. It's not like public speaking. You know, they want to hear what you're saying. No formal words are needed, just using your usual voice. Let me read a little from the renowned author Margaret Atwood on encouraging writers to be who they are. Tell the page your story. Set your voice down on it. The page is very discreet. It won't pass your story on until you allow it to, so you can tell it anything without fear. And if you want to see the longer quote, just go to Notes to Chapter 1 and Margaret Atwood's advice. So, beginning to write Chapter 1. Here are 3 primary elements to a good memoir, or any story for that matter. I'm going to give you the essentials. 3 elements. The first 2 are time and place. The third is images, that is, the pictures to be formed in the reader's mind. These are the images that you have been holding in your mind, preserved for years because they mean a lot to you, and are about to be conveyed through your hand and fingers onto a screen or on pen and paper and sent out for others to read. Story is all about pictures, people, action and talk set in time and place. If you want readers to settle in as quickly as possible, you need to position the characters and life plot in time and space. In other words, you need to establish where and when the characters are situated for their actions and dialogue to make sense. That doesn't mean necessarily that you start the story of your life, or any story, with the words, "In 1975 in Salt Lake City, Utah," or "I was born in Berlin, Germany in 1987. No, it can become boring if you start every story in that official way, even if the locations are unusual. No, sure, you can begin one story that way, but not many. You can instead start with a sentence that jumps straight to the scene, what the place looked like, or the action, what actually happened. And then as the story unfolds, but not too far into it, write about place and time in a way that suits the story. What I'm saying is that if you start your story with the words, "The river was running fast and Jack and his sister Jill were worried about how they could cross over since neither could swim. They were trying to work out how they could continue their quest to reach the summit of the hill. The rain was pelting down," then you should follow very soon after with some details, such as the hill was Mount Snowdon in Wales, it was 1993 and the children were aged just 7 and 8 and were lost, looking for a particular freshwater spring and battling the elements alone. Jack fell and gashed his head badly, and Jill had a few falls, but they managed to reach the summit, find the source of the spring on the other side of the hill, and this is the guts of the story, how they did it. By dark, they were back home in the village of Llanberis and were soon tucked up in bed with hot chocolate to sip before lights out. You understand what I mean? We all live in a world of space or place and time, a reality of people and other animals, of plant life and inanimate objects. That's place or space. and time is ever present. It's a certain time on a calendar, a year, a day, a season, and we're all a certain age at any particular time. Not that we have to give all the detail about all of those elements, but what is essential is that we give enough information for the reader to form a picture in time and place. We live in a world of colourful pictures of the world happening around us. They're sometimes static, if we are still, moving and ever-changing as we travel along. When we're small, in a stroller or on our father's shoulders, toddling, then walking, on a tricycle or push bike, in a car, on a train. Our world forms around these pivot points of where and when. So humans need an image, a picture, to relate to what is happening. We also use our other senses, and we'll get to that in more depth shortly. But for now, it's important to emphasize the basic need for a story to give us time and place quite early on, so that we can follow the actions and dialogue without having an annoying question in the back of our minds as readers, thinking, yes, but where is this and when? So that when I read the word trees, I can get a picture of eucalyptus trees or oak trees, for instance, depending on whether the story is set in Australia or Europe, maybe. And when I read the phrase, the people in the main street, I can visualize them depending on whether it's New York City in 2010 or Alaska in 1950. So you get the picture. So just as a quick exercise now, I want you to write a little piece in just 5 minutes of a day out when you were very small. So what would be the elements to that story? Time and place. That is, the place you are and the place you go. We'll just pause for you to write now, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. This is the exercise, 5 minutes, a day out. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your break from me telling to doing the telling yourself. Work fast. You can always extend your story later, after our webinar. In fact, that's what we expect, if you're to complete your writing project. That is, write for the enjoyment you experience during the webinar and then extend those stories later, so that each webinar is a stimulus for the writing that you'll undertake throughout the week. It's very important that this project is an enjoyable undertaking. For this reason, I'd ask you to begin your story where you want to begin, with a very happy moment in your life. Each chapter will focus on a different part of your life, and chapter 1 logically deals with your very earliest memories, your infancy. In other chapters, writing about what you enjoyed may cover anything from a first date, a wedding, the birth of a child, a first day at work, or a career triumph, or something very personal and different from the run-of-the-mill. It doesn't matter what it is. All that matters is that it made you very happy, and you're going to share that moment with us. Relive the feeling, in other words. It might turn out to be representative of the quality of your childhood or youth, or your marriage, or the way you've gone on to happily remain a single person, a sample, an example of the way it was, and how you felt at the time. It could show you the way your parents lived their lives and the values they expected you to inherit. Or a teacher's estimation or advice, the way a brother or sister treated you, the dynamics of your family or your school days, or a special friendship. What counts is how much it meant to you and the way you're going to show that, that is, how much it meant in telling the story of that occasion or incident. Now, to focus on chapter 1, I'm going to give you a prompt so that you can tackle the earliest memory of your life. You can try to work out when it was, but in this case, don't get too worried if the year seems a bit out. The important thing is that you have the scene in your memory, and that you get down in words the feeling you had at that particular moment, or those particular moments. You can sometimes ground the memory in time and place, but other times it's such a fleeting memory, this very first memory you carry, that those details can't be identified. Not to worry. What's important is that you capture your feeling, and you'll do that through your senses. What you saw, smelled, what you heard, what you were touching perhaps, and especially how you were feeling. Now for a reading from Virginia Woolf's Moments of Being. If life has a base that it stands upon, if it is a bowl that fills and fills and fills, then my bowl, without a doubt, stands upon this memory. It is of lying half asleep, half awake, in bed in the nursery at St. Ives. It is of hearing the waves breaking, 1, 2, 1, 2, behind a yellow blind. It is of hearing the blind draw its little acorn across the floor as the wind blew the blind out. It is of lying and hearing this splash and seeing this light and feeling it is impossible that I should be here, of feeling the purest ecstasy I can conceive. You can see more of those quotes from the notes and Virginia Woolf's earliest memories. So now let's do a writing exercise of your earliest memory. Just start writing now and I'll be back once you've written your 5-minute piece. We'll pause for 5 minutes. Hi there, back again, and I hope you got a lot out of that exercise. It often settles you down knowing that you were an observant being, even as young as you were. They're very special moments, I find, giving you a mini visit to another land, the land of your infancy, and for good or bad, what you recall has had a deep impression on your life, allowing you now to move forward with other memories, knowing that you have every right to claim your memories back into the present, and to incorporate them in the story of who you have been and who you are now, and with a clearer understanding of why. The exercise for this week coming up is to write as many early memories as possible. Keep them as separate events or incidents if you like, or if you feel they're related in some way, you can string them along like beads on a necklace, one after the other in chronological order. That is, from the earliest memories, which most likely will be centred on your family, your parents, brothers and sisters, maybe wider family, often situated in your home. As well as remembering their stories, there's one specific writing exercise I want you to include. It's called My Grandmother. Now, some people have a couple to choose from, others only one that they remember being alive when they were young. But if you didn't have a grandmother who was alive when you were young, then try to write about someone who had a grandmotherly role, or your grandfather, or a person you felt was like what your grandparents might have been when alive. In that case, you can also say what you felt you missed out on in not knowing your grandmother, but only if you truly felt that. Now, for your writing exercise, a piece about your grandmother. And if there's time, go on to another piece or two based on earliest memories. So we'll pause for 5 minutes while you write a memory of your grandmother. Great, I hope you were able to use the whole writing time usefully. Now let's have some readings, and just brief excerpts because slightly longer versions of the readings in this course are all in the accompanying notes for each chapter. I'll only read them in part here, but you may want to read them in full there. If you don't want to do any more study but instead write more and more about your own life, which is what this course is about, well, that's good, but some of you will benefit from the background reading. It's intended as a stimulus for writing, so please, if you do read the notes, make sure you keep up the pace in the actual writing of your life story. That needs to be your main focus to succeed. So I'd like to move to some readings now, something I'll try to do in every webinar, so you'll have plenty of examples of writing down through history and literature. So there are 2 excerpts I'll read from. First I want to read from St. Augustine's The Confessions, Book 10, where he considers memories from words spoken rather than objects themselves. Where were they then, or wherefore, where they were spoken? Did I acknowledge them and say, so it is true, unless as being already in the memory, though so put back and concealed, as it were, in more secret caverns, that had they not been drawn forth by the advice of another, I would not, perchance, have been able to conceive of them. So they're notes from St. Augustine's The Confessions. St. Augustine was concerned with not only the raw memories themselves, but their origin. They were deeply embedded in the mind, but not necessarily all of them originated from our senses directly, he thought. They seemed to have already existed in the mind, perhaps as a result of spoken story or picture. It's curious to think about why some memories are hidden and others remain within easy access. Now for something from a story far less erudite, a story I had published in an academic journal, just a section from the beginning of the story titled Trust. I was the baby, the last of 7, petted and cuddled by brothers and a sister 5 to 25 years older than I was. Trust wasn't a concept, it was a fact of daily life. Then one day my father stood me on a stone wall. Just 5 years old, yet I loomed above him. "Now, my girl, jump," he said. I jumped, and he caught me. "You must never do that for anyone else," he told me. "I'm your father, and I love you a lot. I wouldn't ever let you fall. But if anyone else ever tells you to jump, don't expect that they'll catch you." This was a new idea, and it sank deeply into me. So, there are some people who would let me fall. Who are these people? What do they look like? How will I know them? I must remember this jump, my father says. And coming out of those thought-provoking references to early memories, I'm going to ask you now to write some more of your own. What you can remember of your early life. You're building confidence in your writing by now. That's great. But be careful in this exercise that you don't mix the different senses up altogether. If you can remember something from your senses, sight, smell, hearing, taste, touch, go right into the memory to describe it, the way it affected you, before you move on to another sense or another experience. The words will start flowing as the memories build up. Just be open to them, welcome them in, and then you can relive them in part and put your own adult interpretation on them once you've experienced them deeply enough to satisfy you. Don't go further than you want to, but do slow down so that you have enough of the time, place, and action to feel it again, especially if it's a pleasure to recall. Here's a prompt for beginning a sentence for you. A strong memory I have of my father is when... So if you can write now for 5 minutes on your childhood memory of your father with associations based on the senses. So, welcome back. We're going to go right back to a few more accounts from you of early memories, now that you're in the mood. Take these from your childhood, say up to the age of 12. For experiences after that, you can include them in the next chapter, chapter 2, My Adolescence. Just for now, stick to the main part of your childhood. And here are some sentence starters to help prompt stories about early memories from your childhood. I'm grateful for... I was surprised. My best friend was away. Remember to draw on the 3 essential elements I talked about earlier: time, place, and the picture in your memory. You'll need to draw on your senses to describe the scene, and always keep in mind how many of the elements that are needed to deliver a full story you'll include in your story. The more the better. They're the 5 W's and 1 H. Who, what, where, when and why, and how. 5 W's and an H. And remember that there are many ways you can describe some of these. When, for instance, can be the hour, the day of the week, the year, etc. And where can be indoors, in a named street, at a mall, in a particular suburb, in a country town. The list goes on. And the art of storytelling is for you to decide which is the appropriate way to tell the facts of the story, some of which are essential and some not. You can check over your story once you're finished to see if you're you've covered enough of these descriptors. Now let's pause again so you have 10 minutes to write the final stories from memories of primary school. This will be an experience you had when you were around 8 to 12. The exact age is not so important. If you can't remember exactly that age, make it about that age. Is it a story about sport or even a non-sport? Is it about what you and your mates or girlfriends got up to? Is it about a fear you had and then a surprise? Or one day when you were brave? Is the story set at home or school or somewhere else? An argument with someone, a friend or a parent? What did you learn about someone or something from that incident or event? So here are the prompts. When I was in my upper primary classes, one day at sport, the only teacher who... So we'll pause for 10 minutes and you can write these early memories. Welcome back, and we'll have to close the webinar very soon, but remember that you can view it again and again to tackle some of the prompts you haven't used yet. I'm pleased with your dedication to writing in the here and now, and I see some questions have been coming in, so either send them online now or later once we're finished. Just send them to me at our email address, mylifestoryproject@hotmail.com. And a few final tips. To feel more confident about your stories, you can read aloud during the coming week. That way you can pick up the sense of whether they're sounding too formal or just right as a story spoken in your own voice that you've shared with friends. If you haven't joined My Life Story Project's Facebook membership yet, then why not join now? That way you might be able to share a few of your first stories and get some gentle feedback, please. Everyone has a story. Everyone is a writer just as soon as they put down their first story in a collection of many more to come. Our mantra is, everyone has a story to tell. Your stories will become the legacy of your life. See you soon at next week's webinar and enjoy your writing in the meantime.